My name is David Orban, and I want to welcome all of you to Searching for the Question Live. We are live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you can send us your comments as we will display them and questions, and we will answer them. The themes of our episodes are, of course, varying, and today's theme is the culture of food and how it evolves and how it must adapt to the times. How can we move to healthy, sustainable, and cruelty-free future in producing and preparing our food? And there are options that are becoming available thanks also to technology that we need to adopt. Of course, it is only possible if we also catalyze a rapid evolution in our culture and our behavior that support this kind of change. Today's guest is Marie Frenette, CEO and co-founder of HAE, H-A-E. Marie is a social entrepreneur. She moved to Korea in 2006, where she now resides in Seoul, and where she is connecting with us today. And through HAE, she works with mission-driven brands and helps them succeed in the mainstream market to give consumers sustainable and cruelty-free choices. She's particularly focused on plant-based food space and how simply switching to a more plant-based diet can alleviate or even resolve some of humanity's more pressing issues. So, welcome, Marie. Welcome to Searching for the Question Live.
Thank you so much, David.
I do like to start with our guests asking them what brought them to where they are. And certainly your journey was very interesting, ending up in Seoul, from originally being Canadian. So maybe tell us a little bit about that journey.
Okay, well, I came to Korea when I was 24, and I spent most of my life in Canada until, all of my life in Canada until then. But I knew that I always wanted to be a multicultural type of person, not just in words, but actually in actions as well.
In Canada where?
East Coast, Nova Scotia. So I call Halifax my hometown.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
and the reason I ask that because I will now show Google Earth, and we will travel from Bergamo, where I am, to Halifax, and then from Halifax to Seoul. Please go ahead.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to speak another language, but I grew up in a pretty unilingual environment. A lot of people think that Canada is is bilingual everywhere, but that's not really the case. So, and I wanted to just challenge myself to absorb a new culture and learn a new language intensively. And so the reason why I came to Korea was quite random. I just met somebody who suggested Island might be a nice place to visit, to stay for a year. And within 3 months, I had a job there. And I just realized that Korea is one of Asia's best kept secrets. At that time in 2006, it really still was a secret is kind of silly to say, but yeah, a lot of people didn't really know what I was doing there. I've had people say things like, it's really nice that I'm helping the Korean people. And I'm just, Korea is a very well-developed country. And I think sometimes people get it mixed up with North Korea. So that's why I get comments like that. But at the time, K-pop was not as huge, and Korean cosmetics, IT was not really that well known around the world. And so it was. I went there knowing almost nothing, and just ended up falling in love with the country,
and
not with the person in particular.
And it is actually interesting because 2007 was the year that the iPhone was released, and then. After that, Android was born and licensed to the various makers. And of course, Samsung and LG and many others are world-leading brands of phones and televisions and other devices now, all based on the Android operating system.
Right.
And this brought notoriety to Korean hardware.
Right.
But the government was smart enough to actually invest also in content. That is why both Korean drama and then Korean music, K-pop, that you mentioned, became so popular both in Asia as well as elsewhere. We will have another episode from Korea with my daughter Jordana. Actually, you and I met through her, so we will dedicate that to talk about K-pop and the Korean music scene and entertainment culture and so on. So, but that is not your field. Your field is very different. Healthy food and cruelty-free food and plant-based nutrition. Was that the case already 15 years ago, or that is also something that you came into more similarly serendipitously as the location itself?
A lot of things have been quite serendipitous for me, but I was vegetarian in elementary school, and that actually went on until I came to Korea. But Korea was not very vegetarian friendly at the time, and my commitment to just diving into the culture and taking everything in as it was caused me to start eating meat and that kind of thing at the time. So I've only stopped doing that 4 years ago, I think, and it all came about because of the Good Food Institute. I was browsing Facebook one day and I saw this ad talking about sustainable food and entrepreneurship, how startups can change the face of food. And I thought, who are these people? Like, I just want to know more. So I reached out and I was able to connect with Brian Cateman, who is now the founder of the Reducitarian movement. And we got on a call.
Can you repeat that?
I also connected with Bruce Frederick.
Apologies.
Reducitarian.
What movement? I didn't understand.
So the Reducitarian movement. So you just spell reduce and then TARIAN.
Okay.
So he left the Good Food Institute and started this organization as well. And the premise behind this is we don't have to be perfect. Each one of us in our daily lives can make effort to reduce the amount of animal foods that we're eating, and that still over the big picture, it still really makes a big difference. So yeah, this is Brian, you see there in the video. And so he was the first person I connected with. And then I got to talk to Bruce Frederick, who has a really great TED Talk as well on I think it has well over 1 million views. So these guys are all in this movement that encourages people to reduce their intake of animal foods, to use technology to change our food system and to make it more sustainable. And a lot of that involves taking the animal out of the equation. And so that can be accomplished through plant-based foods. And then there's also something called cultured meats, which involves taking the cells from animals and creating meat from that in kind of a brewery type setting. That would be the form that it would take in the future. So all this stuff is very fascinating for me.
It is absolutely fascinating, and I am also glad to hear, and of course I already knew it, but for our viewers, that you, as well as the people you cited, are not fanatics, because there is this perception of vegetarians and vegans as those people you don't want to have at dinner, because at every time they have the opportunity, they will badger you of how bad you are and how unhealthy you are eating, and how bad you are for the environment and for the animals, etc., etc. So to hear that a compromise is possible, and that yes, one doesn't have to be perfect, that imperfection is sometimes necessary because we are human, but still one can be good is a relief, because maybe it is a more pragmatic and effective way to affect change, which is at the end what you want, right?
Exactly. So there is another person that you should probably know about. His name is Tobias Lunar, and he has a book called How to Create a Vegan World if you look on Amazon.
Okay, I'm doing it.
It's a pragmatic approach, and you know, when you realize the impact that what we're doing to as far as the food system goes has on the environment, has on the animals, has on our own health, it's really easy to like literally panic and feel like you just want to scream at everybody, you know, like, hey, do you know what you're doing? But the problem is that immediately walls between you and the person. And so this book is all about how can we communicate with people in a way that makes them want to listen, and instead of making people feel like you think you're morally superior to them, try to connect with them on their level. And there's also another author called Melanie Joy, Dr. Melanie Joy, and she's got a book called Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. And they also run an organization called Beyond Carnism and another one called SIVA. And they also founded an organization called ProVeg. So all of these amazing organizations are all coming together to make huge changes in the world, literally changing the types of product offerings that are on the market, lobbying the government, doing education for consumers, creating a more fun and positive culture around plant-based eating. And it's really just a multi-pronged approach, and it's really special. So I'm happy to be, you know, involved with these people on various levels, and also to be doing, you know, what we're doing here in Korea as well.
And you discovered this and then decided to become part of it. So tell me about your startup, Hi, and what you do, what stage you are at, what are your future plans?
Sure. So we call it Hey, actually. So the company's name is Hey Creative, and what we decided to do was, as a first step to contributing to this industry, was to take the experience that we had already in marketing, business development, creative things, and help these organizations and these companies that are reaching out to consumers, help them to be communicate and educate the public as well. And so what you're seeing here on our website is actually the content side of what we do. So we have client projects, but we're especially recently putting a lot more effort into creating our own content. But our team is quite small at the moment, so we're all basically Swiss Army knives, doing all the things. And so you can see that's Helen and Ilsu, those are my partners, and we're really getting into profiling people here in Korea who are already advancing the scene, especially, you know, local Korean people, because I think for the longest time people in Korea thought that, you know, vegan is all about, you know, foreign people. Oh, that works in foreign countries, but that does not work here. And I think the same thing could be said about many Asian countries, but it's really not true. There are people all around the world who are recognizing these issues and trying to find ways to contribute. And so, for example, we have a video coming out soon about a vegan bodybuilder from Korea, and she's a YouTuber as well, and Dan Ji Ang is her YouTube, and we were able to profile her daily life and her mission, and see her working out in the gym and stuff too, you know, showing off her her plant-based her muscles based on plant-based protein, and it's really interesting to see what a variety of approaches there are out there, and yeah, it's just exciting. There's just so much to uncover and so much to share with the world. So the content side of what we do is going to become bigger and bigger.
And creating content to spread the importance and the message of a given culture is a fantastic way to make sure that people learn about it, that they can interact and engage. And of course, as you said, you can discover surprising angles, like a vegan bodybuilder, right?
Right.
Or I don't know, sumo fighter, or any kind of performance athlete that traditionally would be associated with an omnivore or animal-based diet, and instead showing that plant-based diets can perfectly support very energetic, high-performance occupations and lifestyles. Those are
Right.
fantastic examples to bring this vividly understandable for everybody. And so you are saying that the Korean culture and food scene changed in the past several years, and the people became more accepting of vegan, vegetarian options, of plant-based diets. Is it also the case beyond restaurants that can make the choice? They say, okay, we are vegan and vegetarian. They make a bet, and then they see if they survive, if enough guests will support the establishment. But is it also the craze for consumer choices? What about supermarket chains? Is it possible to find outside of the vegetable and fruit stalls, because those are definitely available? But what about people who are busy, who don't want to prepare the whole meal, want to find something that is a complete meal or an option to put together rapidly something and adopt the plant-based food culture?
Right. So there are meal subscription type services where people will drop off an entire week worth of meals for you if you want. And there's one, for example, called Sprout, and that is delivered all around the country. And it's actually a fellow expat for international resident entrepreneur that started that one. And all the delivery apps like Baemin or Coupang Eats or Shuttle here in Korea, you can search vegan and come up with some good choices depending on the area that you live in, of course. And then the big markets, there's Market Curly that likes to focus a little bit more on the health food market that has a whole vegan section. And then the major markets like E-Mart, which is, I guess it's similar to Walmart. E-Mart, Lotte Mart, like those types of shops are also, franchises are also offering vegan choices. So I would say we're still really at the very beginning, but like it's a special niche market that is booming quite a lot. And another thing that's very important to remember with Korea is they're very sensitive to overseas trends. I mean, not just because Korea is an export oriented country, but also because Koreans are just early adopters and they're always looking for the newest thing and interested in embracing new foods and new experiences. So since I think I started being vegan about 4 years ago, and it's really just incredible the types of changes I've seen already. Like I feel like I started just as it was kind of on the upswing, and there are local Korean groups, Korean language groups, where you can learn about this lifestyle. Also foreign groups as well, and more YouTubers are popping up and making Korean language content about this lifestyle. And you see it more frequently on television as well. So you see celebrities trying different vegan dishes, including plant-based meat.
So if people following our episode wanted to do something similar like you are doing, but in their own country, what would be your advice? How should they go about it in order to succeed in spreading the message, avoiding some of the mistakes that have been made in other places in the past? What are the best practices, in your opinion, that they can easily adopt?
First of all, the community of people who are out there really being leaders and pushing forward is it's getting bigger, but it's actually a fairly small group of people. A lot of people are focused more on just their own daily lives and not on trying to convince other people of changing their habits. So, but that community of people is very welcoming, actually. So if you want to do something in this space, you want to step up and be a leader, then I highly recommend reaching out to those people, like, for example, the types of people that I mentioned earlier, because I did that beginning 4 years ago. And as a result, I really feel like my company is growing much faster. So network with the people who are out there doing it already. Some of them have been doing it for 20, 30 years, working in this space in different capacities. So build up that network. Don't be afraid to reach out. People are a lot more open and accessible and welcoming than you would expect. I think that's really the first thing. And also meeting people on their level, trying to take the judgment out of things. And even if you are a vegan, most of us were not born that way, right? So one thing they say,
any of us who had the privilege and the beauty of being breastfed, we started with not being vegan at all.
Well, but breast milk is made for baby humans, right? Whereas like cows' milk is not. So that's where the not vegan thing comes in.
I'm just saying breast milk is of animal origin, so it's definitely not.
Yeah, but the mother wants to give it. The key is when we're taking other people's bodies, stuff from their bodies, other animals' bodies, without permission, that makes it not vegan. So a mother wants to give to their child, so that is vegan, actually. It's just a technicality there.
Have you read, just to keep joking a bit in a lighthearted manner, even though the example is very appropriate or inappropriate? Have you read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I read it a long time ago, so I don't really remember references to it, unfortunately. But you can give it a shot.
Well, yeah. Well, there is a scene where in their travels and adventures around the galaxy and meeting crazy and absurd situations, they meet a cow that has been specifically engineered to want to be eaten. And actually the cow is conscious and goes and offers herself to the people and displays what parts of the animal they should be eating. Now, obviously, that is a great example to highlight the absurdity of what you just mentioned, that we don't give a choice to the animals that we are feeding and growing and then slaughtering. And even if they had even if we gave them a choice, it would be never, yes, please eat me. We believe. And so back to the point where I interrupted you. You were saying that being accepting towards the choices that people make is important, because none of us were born vegan or vegetarian, right? But right. Actually, there are many countries where the culture, for example, in India, of vegetarian nutrition is very widespread, and I always try to be kind enough and remember when I have a meal with an Indian friend to ask if they are actually vegetarian, and oftentimes it turns out that they are, and so I'm glad that that we pick places where they can eat too, because
Yeah.
it is often the case that a person who follows a plant-based nutrition has a very poor set of choices in restaurants where they think, oh, a salad will be it, and that's it. They solved the problem.
Or
with,
like a plate of French fries.
or yes.
Terrible. Yeah, I think the world is really changing a lot, though. People are becoming much more aware. You know, for example, my mother is celiac, so she has a risk of literally getting stomach cancer if she keeps eating gluten. So she's like the 1% of the population that really needs to eat gluten-free. But since then, many other people have adopted a gluten-free diet. They just feel like they feel better when they eat that way. And because of that, the market has gotten so much bigger. And it's the same thing with vegan products. The vast majority of people who are purchasing vegan products are actually not vegan. So and that's one reason why the word plant-based is often used, because you know, vegan comes along with it's a very big set of you know, restrictions, and also a lot of people are quite negative about the word in the first place. So the purpose of using the word plant-based is just to kind of let people, like, free people of this, and let them just try different foods, try different plant-based foods without feeling like they have to, you know, do the whole vegan thing 100%. So yeah, it's a very interesting movement.
And probably that is the point. Even somebody who has been growing up in the traditional Western diet of chicken and pork and beef, not with every meal, almost with every meal, they can make choices of starting to alternate and introduce plant-based meals 1-2 times a day, or an entire day without meat, and so on, and then see what their reaction is, and how they feel, but also what kind of variety they can achieve. I am personally a very an omnivore, and I also like to eat meat. I recognize my hypocrisy of not even wanting to think about the condition of the animals that I'm eating while they were alive, and I realize how morally corrupt that is, and there was a period in more than 10 years ago now, that in order to lose weight, I said, okay, why don't I try being vegan? And for 8 months, as it turns out, I only ate plant-based food. And I was able to enjoy it greatly in terms of both the variety, the adventure of composing my meals. My wife hated it because she would keep cooking omnivore food, including animal products for our children and herself, and I would always be aside. You know, with my freaky, exotic attempts, but it was good, and I lost a lot of weight too, and I broke it when I was in Japan, and we would be served at receptions, you know, sushi by black belt sushi chefs of, you know, whatever level. And I thought that if I didn't have that food, and I would go back and say, "Oh, wow, I didn't even try it," I would feel stupid, and so that led me to break the constant attention. and since then I haven't made new attempts. But after the lockdown, I became so fat in the past 2 months that
I feel you.
that now I am trying to do something about it, and one of the components can definitely be of eating healthier through eating vegetarian or vegan. Um, we actually didn't even think about it, but it could be worth even formulating a very simple definition of what is the difference between vegetarian and vegan, because not all of our viewers may know it.
Right. So I also had a few talking points on what you just said that I'm going to try my best not to forget. But
no, please.
Oh, okay. So the first thing is, so when your wife was cooking for you and feeling like it's a lot to have to make multiple meals. I think one strategy, if you were to ever have to do that again, would to make the base vegan, and then if needed, you can add some extra protein in there, and then they wouldn't have to make multiple meals. And then the other thing is, there are a lot of really interesting movements, like for example, Meat-Free Monday, Green Monday, Veganuary, that are all there to encourage you to reduce and to teach you how to accomplish that. So there are a lot of free resources out there, and that whole pragmatic approach is trying to get away from this idea of perfection, right? So you went with it for 8 months, and then you broke the chain in Japan, right? But really, it's okay to just mess up sometimes and then just get back on it again. So that's a pretty important advice. Could you also check out Green Monday, greenmonday.org? We actually work with them. They are also associated with Meat-Free Monday, but they focus on encouraging people in Asia to reduce their intake of animal foods. And you can see Paul McCartney and a bunch of other Asian celebrities who are on board with this, just encouraging people to start exploring. And it doesn't have to be 3 meals a day, every single day, every single month for the rest of your life. You can eat mostly plant-based and then occasionally eat meat if that's something that's interesting for you. So expecting perfection from ourselves is what keeps a lot of us from even trying in the first place. And to define vegetarianism versus veganism, I would like to I think that veganism is under the vegetarian umbrella, and vegetarianism, some people argue that this is not really vegetarianism, but there are people who call themselves pesco vegetarians, for example. So they'll still eat fish and mostly plant-based diet, so plant-based diet plus fish. And then there are people who call themselves lacto-ovo vegetarians, so it'll be milk, egg, plus veggies. So a lot of Indian people, for example, would have that type of a diet. But I used to think that was fine, because with eggs and dairy, the animals don't die. And but once I started digging into what's happening with the dairy industry, I realized that the animals in those industries are suffering immensely. And so it almost seems better in my mind that the animal just, dies rather than being kept alive for so long. So from an ethical perspective, eating, meat, dairy and eggs is quite, it's difficult to argue that it's okay. But the whole point is not talking about ethics, moving away from that and just focusing on the benefits that the individual gets from eating in a certain way, the benefits of an overall reduction of animal intake amongst the whole population, as opposed to expecting just one person to be 100% perfect. That's a much more realistic and pragmatic way to reach more and more people. So even though I feel it in my heart, I try not to talk much about ethics. It's just one of those things.
To talk about ethics instead, just a little bit more. I wonder what is the right decision in terms of looking at the species which has been very successful, whether we look at chicken or cows or pigs, versus other species that cannot be domesticated, like, I don't know, a zebra, that hasn't multiplied with the numbers of the furs that I cited. And when we move massively to either a plant-based food or cultivated meat, which won't require the animals to be grown in order to generate the animal protein that humans will consume, the consequence will be a drastic reduction in the number of the individuals of those species that we were formerly eating, with potentially and absurdly cows and chickens and pigs ending up in zoos in a very, very low number, because there are no wild habitats where we would say, okay, this is the original habitat of the cow or the pig, because the varieties that we are growing cannot survive in the wild. They are so extremely bred that there is no way we can say, okay, here is a natural reserve, now go and live your life. They wouldn't be able to survive. So as I'm saying this, the absurdity of the reasoning is quite evident, because through that we still cannot, of course, justify the suffering of billions of individuals of each of those species. And so I guess we will end up with, you know, whatever the number of the individuals that will keep living as a residual of the former populations. Is that the way you see it as well?
Yeah. So these individuals, I mean, they're not really viewed as individuals in the industry, but yeah, they are brought into the world to serve a purpose, right? And they, even for example, with dairy, they impregnate a cow and they create a calf to stimulate the milk production. Then they steal the calf away, right? And the calf is usually slaughtered if it's a boy, and then kept to do the same thing over and over again if it's a female. And so the quality of life that they're having anyway is not good. They're being brought into the world artificially. And so as meat production declines, the amount of these individuals that will be brought into the world would also decline. And, you know, there are quite a number of farm sanctuaries that are popping up all over the world to allow animals who are rescued from these types of situations to live out their natural lives. I once saw a blog post about these animals in their old age. And it was incredible. I didn't realize that the pigs and cows and chickens that we see are actually babies. They're living only a few years and their lives are ending. So elderly farm animals. It's really when animals are allowed to grow old. If you take a look at this, it's just absolutely incredible. And I couldn't believe that I'd never thought about that. Like I'd never seen an elderly animal, like farm animal, before. So this is a Guardian article, actually, put out to grass when animals are allowed to grow old. If take a look at it, the photos are just like, they're really heartbreaking. You know, having never and never, like, not often seeing these animals be able to live out their full lives.
An old chicken. That's right. We have never seen an old chicken.
Yeah, and they have their own, you know, their own societies, their own families, their loves, and, you know, they just like any of us, you know, just like the dogs that we love.
Exactly. Anybody who has ever had a dog and seen the dog sleeping and dreaming and moving its paws, you know, dreaming to hunt and things like that, realizes that they are self-aware.
Yeah, sleep barking.
And they have a degree of consciousness.
Yeah.
And then it is quite natural to extend that, to realize that pigs are of the same intelligence, and we are now seeing videos of cows playing soccer. I don't know if you have seen those.
Oh, I've seen it.
or chicken cuddling with humans, recognizing them. So yeah, we are a hunter species that is now realizing that we have to move beyond our roots. And as a card carrying transhumanist, I will happily embrace that future where we don't rely on our current farm industry to gather to our original carnivorous hunter origins and inclinations.
There's actually a lot of evidence that we are mostly plant-based, actually, because it took a lot of energy to be going out into the woods and trying to, like, hunt something. And you might notice that we don't have any, like, built-in weaponry. So a lot of evidence with archaeologists and stuff is actually showing that we were mostly plant-based in our early human history as well. If you read *Sapiens*, Yuval Harari, you can learn more about that as well.
Yeah, and definitely meat was a feast, an exception, something to be celebrated. In the past, it was not a daily occurrence that we would be able to eat meat. So what are the next steps for He? What are your ambitions, and how do you want to grow your startup?
So right now we've been able to start working with Green Monday, for example, and we also have a big Korean food company that we're in talks with about working on a project with them. So I would like to expand further in that. And basically right now in Korea, in Asia, and even around the world, there aren't that many companies like us that really focus on the sustainable food system. So there's a lot of potential for future collaborations and helping companies to develop really good products and really good messaging to connect to consumers. And we didn't talk that much about the environmental aspect of the meat industry, the animal agriculture industry, and also even the connection to pandemics. A lot of these diseases that we're struggling with right now have origins that come from us misusing animals. So that's something that in hindsight I would have liked to have talked about a little bit more. But for our company,
we have a little bit of time. We can do that. Please finish telling us about He, and then we definitely should talk about also the situation of COVID-19 in Seoul and in Korea, because of course that is relevant to you especially.
Right. Yeah. So basically, our mission is to make it effortless for consumers to make more sustainable food choices. So we do that by educating consumers, educating corporations, government, and then also working closely with companies, food companies that are actually producing the food and getting it out there to the consumers. So I would like to continue working on that mission, and then as a next step, I'm actually really interested in starting my own food manufacturing company to add to the product offerings that are out there, because there's just so much that hasn't been done yet, and I feel like that is a really great way to make an impact on the next level. So yeah, that's it's a few years away probably, but you know, the first goal is elevating everybody and getting consumers really ready for this new world of food, and then contributing directly to it, hopefully.
So, how is the situation with coronavirus in South Korea, in Seoul? It was the second epicenter after China. Then it moved to Italy, then to New York, and now it seems that Korea stopped the local outbreak. There haven't been new infections for now a few days, and they are ready to completely eliminate any restrictions. How do you feel about it? Do you believe Korea handled it well, and is it now time to move back or move forward? What is the local conversation around that?
I feel really blessed to be spending this time in history in Korea. I was actually in Canada at the end of January, and I had, you know, technically had the choice to stay there, and I to come back to Korea because I have so much faith in in the medical system here, in the government, in the technology that really connects all of us and makes a more kind of forward-thinking response to this pandemic possible. And I really haven't been disappointed. I think Korea stands as, you know, a great example for the rest of the world on how to deal with this. And yes, it's true that there haven't been local domestic cases in the last few days, but you know, people still keep coming from overseas and adding to the numbers. The government has been doing really incredible things with the people the newcomers who are coming in from the airport. They're putting them in a mandatory quarantine, I think for 2 weeks, and they are providing them with, you know, medical care and food, and, you know, being very proactive in isolating them and making sure that they're really okay before allowing them to get out there into the public. And yeah, I do know that the government is preparing for a second wave. I mean, it is possible that there will be a second wave. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet, but the feeling out on the street, I just took my dog for a walk earlier, because we've never been on lockdown, actually. Everything has been voluntary isolation, voluntary like social distancing, except for the, you know, vulnerable people or people who might be at high risk of spreading the disease. So out on the street, we see couples, people clearly out just having a really nice time. But the main thing is everyone's still wearing masks. You know, masks have always been a big part of culture here. You know, even if you have like a bad day and you just want to cover up your face, or you had a cold and you don't want to give it to someone else, or you're a celebrity and you don't want to be recognized. So mask culture has always been a thing. Like even K-pop fans would know that for sure. It's very common. And so it's no big deal for us to wear masks. We don't feel like, you know, everyone's walking around like zombies or something like that. And I think that mask culture is what really helped us, because you know, those products were already very widespread, widely accepted. No one was against the idea of using them. And yeah, even though things are getting better, people are still being cautious and they're still wearing their masks. So that's great to see.
Wonderful. And I am very happy that you are healthy, and that Seoul and Korea in general has been able to contain the pandemic on a local level. It is interesting that those countries that have been more heavily impacted are now evolving to the point where they are asking themselves if the trauma both human and economic, caused by the pandemic, can be reinterpreted as an opportunity for a wider and deeper conversation around what are the next steps and how society can transform, not only in order to make sure that the next pandemic either can be prevented or can be better managed, but how can society take advantage of the current situation in order to address a lot of the challenges and the tensions that have been accumulating for decades that haven't been tackled, and now with a more open mind that is necessarily open because it is searching on a daily basis for solutions given the pandemic. With a more open mind, these tensions and these challenges maybe can be tackled. And I'm talking about income inequality, wealth inequality, the lack of opportunities for a lot of people in society, especially in the US, the lack of universal health care, which has been especially striking in the current situation. So has there been any of that in Korea, or given how well the epidemic has been handled, paradoxically, this opportunity has been lost?
I don't have enough information to comment on that, I think, because these days I've been obviously quite isolated, and I'm not really paying much attention to like the Korean news as much as I should. And so I don't like making kind of ignorant assessments of things. But one thing I would like to say is the hand washing in Korea was never as much of a big thing as it was in Canada, like growing up. And it might sound kind of crazy, but there really is quite a big difference. And so a lot of people are joking around about the fact that like the pandemic has already caused people to like, click in that, after going to the public washroom, that's like a super important thing to do. So I'm not saying that all Koreans no Koreans wash their hands or anything, but I just noticed there's like, we could do better basically. And I feel like this pandemic is, even for me, like I got a little bit more lax on it too, if I'm being honest. The pandemic is making all of us think a little bit more about sanitation and cleanliness and stuff like that. So yeah, that's one thing. Yeah. I sometimes feel guilty about talking about the positive benefits of what's going on, because there are still so many people suffering, and I feel like things are really getting a lot better here. So I feel kind of like I'm bragging or something, but I think it really is important to try to, look at the positive, because, our brains just can't handle having too much heaviness all the time. So it is definitely important.
In Italy, where I am right now, the talk is all around how adapt certain economic activities to what they call now phase 2 of the pandemic, where people can get out of their homes and they can, with certain restrictions, go to certain places. Nobody can leave their home region. So you cannot go from Lombardy, Milan to Lazio, Rome. And then they are thinking about, okay, what will happen this summer when theoretically tourists should come, or at least Italians should go to the seaside and things like that. And so it is now all about installing no-touch components, so that as you are on your sunbed, you can adjust it without touching the bed, or the bathroom on the beach is completely no touch, and other things like that. So it's quite interesting. And of course I understand how you feel about your situation, because you are healthy, I am healthy, and yes, people are suffering or dying. The Italian television is triumphant because only 300 people died yesterday. Wow. Okay, that is an achievement, right? It's triumphant because only 300 people died.
Sorry.
And at the same time, I'm absolutely curious to see how the changes and the challenges will keep reverberating, right? Whether it is really a health scare with a second wave, or the impact of the economic downturn that is going to create, for example, in Korea, Samsung will have to revise their projections of how many phones or television sets or fridges they are going to sell in the next several quarters because of the economic impact of the pandemic.
Right.
So, Marie, if people want to keep in touch and check out Hey, is your website hey.life the best place they can go to?
Yep, and we also are quite active on Instagram, and it's Hey for Life, HAEFORLIFE is our handle on most of the social media.
Wonderful, and I can paste that in overlay as well as sharing that. And it was really great having you here. Thank you very much for coming on our show, and
I really appreciate it.
And I will be eager to see how your efforts will promote a plant-based food culture in Korea and beyond, and I will be eagerly experimenting with it as well myself. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, if you need any insight, get in touch. I'm your personal coach.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for being here with us on Searching for the Question Live. This time slot is new because I want to engage with interesting people like Marie from Seoul in time zones where I want to make them comfortable in joining. Our other time slot is more compatible with European and American guests and viewers, but there are billions of people in Asia, and they have amazing things to say, and they do amazing things. So I want to make myself available to host them as well. And so if you want to follow Searching for the Question Live, there are many ways that you can be involved, including that you can suggest guests and vote on suggestions made by others. You can also join our Discord community on davidorban.com/Discord and subscribe to my newsletter that I send out once a week. And if you like the content that I am creating together with my team, I invite you to become a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/DavidOrban. Thank you very much, and I will be seeing you in the next episode of Searching for the Question Live.